So I'm gonna be hitting this edge I just scored and snapped with a Helix Quattro pad before I miter. And I will show you why. This is the pad I'll be using. It's a Helix Quattro 200. Usually we can survive with just using the 200 and not have to use 100 or any of the 4s or 50s. So here's some more of those. More of the pads. There's 100. I believe that's a 400. Yeah, red's 400, blue is 50. So these are the pads we use on all of our miters. I don't use too many more pads than those. When we get into polishing, we get into some different pads, but and I'll show you really quick on another piece. Kind of have mocked up for the inside edge of a sink. This edge, this backside is scored so you can kind of see, if I can find the camera, some of those micro fissures on the edge that has not been cleaned. Here, this side has been mitered. If you can see that. So we just want to get this edge nice and smooth whenever we go to epoxy. The blade I'm using is a DyeStar. I believe it's that 2.0. It's a really clean cutting blade. And this is 12 mil material, so hit it with the pad first. So the reason I hit it with that pad first is any of those little micro fissures in the glazing that I just showed you a minute ago. As your grinder blade gets closer to the edge of the material, it can start to cause micro fissures or more chipping in the edge of that polish. And then you have to polish the material back, and then you lose the width of your material, and that doesn't always work out just to compensate for it. So mitering, we usually miter at 47 degrees. And mitering with water does help out a lot with the speed and getting a clean cut. a little bit of a bevel there, probably like 1/8 of an inch of material for me to work with. And I'm going to take the flap wheel and get that really fine edge back to about 32nd to a 16th. So I'm holding this a little weird, trying not to get the iPad wet. So I don't have my eye right on it, but I think we're just about there. So a lot of times, like a lot of stone guys when they're doing natural stone and stuff, they go for a knife edge miter. And since this is porcelain, between 32nd and 16th of material left on the edge. One is good right. Now that edge is nice and consistent, and we've got, what I usually like to do is grab a dry cloth after I use the flap wheel, go over this edge and see if we have any chipping in this polish. Usually if they're really, really small, like a 64th of an inch, epoxy fills that in, and you don't ever see it. Anything bigger than that, it's going to stick out or require you to do a lot of work to hide it. And that amount of work doesn't constitute taking, taking a helix, making a quick pass, take like 5 seconds, as opposed to working a little spot like that. It could take you 20, 30 minutes on the back end. So face is mitered. I already mitered the top sight of the sink cutout. So I know a lot of people will suggest you drilling these inside corners out first. I'll say if you're just starting out, I would strongly suggest it. But where we're installing gauge porcelain to build the sinks daily, we tend to break a couple rules here and there, so don't suggest it. But we'll cut out some of this excess on the backside, then we'll come in with a finger bit, and I'll get all these sharp 90-degree overcuts out of the backside of this material. I'll tell you too, sometimes we're working with some material that you have to drill these inside corners out prior to cutting. This is an 8mm finger bit. I believe it's, I know I got it off Amazon. Not the manufacturer. SH Diatool is the manufacturer of that thing. I've had this specific bit for years. So any sharpening would be lots of half this material. Really that sharpening is going to cut this material. The stress important when you're doing these inside corners. Just take your time. You don't want to blow the face of that inside corner out, or you'll be cutting a new piece. So this is 12 mil material. I'll tell you, we don't often work with 12 mil material. We usually working with 6 mil. And 12 mil always takes just a ton of time. You're removing, twice the thickness of the material. So flip this over, check the inside cutout. And these inside corners can be a little tricky because we do need to have a radius on these inside corners from the top side as well. What I was just doing, I was taking out the saw marks from the back side, which is just as, if not more important than putting a radius in the base. And for sinks, I'll tell you, I treat them a little differently than I would like a wall installation. For the sinks, I always try to do like a 6 mil radius on those inside corners. And all this material gets set with epoxy, gets reinforced a whole bunch, so not too worried about it with cheating that radius a little bit. When I create that radius, you might notice I'm pushing down and then pulling up and pushing down. I'm not putting this bit in the corner and then pulling up as I'm grinding. What you'll do if you were to do that is you will chip this polish here in this very corner. So two or three light passes usually does it. Making real heavy passes on these inside corners is usually where guys get a lot of chips in their corners. And the cool thing about leaving a little bit of excess on the inside of your sink cutout is, even if you do get some chips, usually you can spend a little bit of time with the flap wheel and remove some of that material back just to eliminate those chips. This material in particular has probably the thickest polish I have worked with. I'm not a fan of it because those little micro chips are somewhat unavoidable. The cool thing I like about this 200 pad is it's just as smooth as if you have, you know, 4 of the same exact slabs, you can pull pieces out of for the sides and bottom. But something like this with a good amount of variation, we can get it extremely close. Okay, that piece is all good. So now, this is all 1-inch go board with an ultimate drains shower drain. You guys can see that. Yeah. So on this drain, you take a hole saw, you drill the bottom of this drain. It's all PVC, so you can determine your outlet where it goes. On the back side of these, I know it's kind of hard to tell with lighting. But on the back side of these, there's a recessed channel. You can actually put LED lights inside of the shower drain. And then instead of your standard end caps, there's an end cap with a hole. It goes up, I believe, 5 or 6 inches, and that's where your wires come out for your LED. So it's a pretty cool drain. It's approved from most manufacturers that I'm aware of. There's a 1/2 inch lip here, 3/8. You can either use sealant or use membrane, go over the top of it with membrane and just seal that edge. It's got some ridges on it, so grips nice to any type of sealant. What we do with the sink specifically in this case is I'll cut out 2-inch pieces and we'll slope them from the outside towards the drain. I'll cut one piece, drill a hole in the center of it, and obviously it'll break when I cut that big of a hole out. It's the same width, so we'll epoxy that into the bottom. So whatever water goes down the back, it'll hit those sloped pieces, go down the drain, and we won't have any standing water in here. For the construction of this, it's just a bunch of sealant and 4-inch screws, and we usually, the ones we've built in the past, you know, we stand in them. 200-pound dudes, we stand in them before we start throwing porcelain on them. And usually that's about the breaking point of these small sinks before they get porcelain on them. In the moment of truth. Usually, in these sinks, sometimes you can leave yourself a little bit of excess on the inside of the sink. You can leave your ends 1 inch long on each side, so if you got to adjust either way, whatever you need to do. If you're just starting out, it's always better to be safe than sorry. So we've already got one of these things built. This is the second one I'm working on. This is a piece I have cut for the other sink. I'm just going to use it to check. We got a bunch of sealant there we're going to peel off. Okay, so these are the fun pieces. Little 1.5-inch rippers to the front. They're a little difficult to get them clamped down just right so they don't slide off and break. And then you got to be mindful as you're mitering not to hit your blade on the steel table. These Milwaukee clamps, they've worked pretty good, these little apron pieces. You can see the tape on there too. as we're scoring and snapping, we try to label everything so we don't end up mitering the wrong side or making that mistake. But I think you guys already seen me miter the other side, so I'm gonna end the video. And if you guys have any questions, throw them down in the comments below, and I'll try to answer them the best I can. Hope you guys have a good night, and we will see you later.